Hello everybody, welcome to Awesome Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and drop a like on this video to help it do better in the YouTube algorithm. Both actions are much appreciated. So I said that I was going to talk about the Heat-Bucks game as well as the Warriors-Kings game. I'm actually going to make the Warriors-Kings game reaction a video tomorrow just because all that's happening today is Celtics versus Hawks, which in the case of the Celtics is hopefully not a huge game, but with the way the NBA is going right now, why wouldn't the Hawks come back from a 3-1 lead? But I'm going to talk about just the Heat and Bucks in this video, and the reason I decided to split it up, not only given that there's not much happening today, it's also because I have a lot of thoughts about the Milwaukee Bucks, and there's going to be a main channel video, not today, but tomorrow, that is going to go in more depth, but I'm just going to give you my raw thoughts, and we'll first start with just, obviously, the reaction to Game 5 as a whole. After the Bucks went down 3-1, I was like, well, given the context of why this happened, Giannis only really playing one full game, and the Miami Heat just shooting a ludicrous percentage from the field and from three, I was like, okay, there's a strong chance that a 3-1 comeback is possible here. Even though I thought that was possible, my ultimate prediction would have been Miami in 6. I really didn't think there was much chance they were going to win Game 5 on Milwaukee's home floor. Obviously, that did not come to be because combined with the Heat continuing to just have scorching shooting from outside, combined with Jimmy Butler continuing to be ridiculous. He had 42 points in this game, shooting very well. Bam Adebayo had a 20-point triple-double. With everything going well for the Heat, for the fourth quarter, for overtime, everything went not well for the Bucks, specifically for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now, there are two approaches here, and really, this has been the issue with criticizing the Bucks for a long time, and specifically criticizing Giannis Antetokounmpo. You can look at it and blame Giannis because he shot like 3 for 12 in the clutch, and he missed 13 free throws in this one. And there's just simply no excuse for that, and there is a lot of blame to be put on him for that. But also, the second half of this, someone that I'm almost certain will not be associated with this team next year, Mike Budenholzer. Wow, just no game plan, huh? That's what you're going with? That's certainly a choice. It's an issue that's existed with the Bucks forever, just Mike Budenholzer defaulting to something that I have always called Giannis big, Giannis go. That's just what I imagine is on the not chalkboard, what the hell is it called? Freaking clipboard, that's what it's called. On the clipboard, just says Giannis is big, have him run to the basket, you know? And that's exactly what happened in this game. If it wasn't him just running to the basket, it was him posting up, and damn it if Bam Adebayo did not shut that shit down at every corner. He was either making a miss or making him earn it at the free throw line, and with how Giannis was shooting from the line in this game, he very, very much was not earning it. So that was the big issue here. Another big issue at the series at large was Jrue Holiday. Man, just terrible. I frankly don't think that... I think there's a chance Milwaukee might trade him this offseason because at a certain point, how much can you just continue to have your second or third best player just be terrible in the playoffs? Like, Jrue, even in the year that they won the championship, was not scoring the ball well throughout the entirety of the playoffs. He averaged like double-digit assists and was obviously the defensive player that he is, but ultimately, him shooting poorly and him just taking a bunch of dumb shots. He shot 8 threes a game in this series, which he's just not nearly a good enough three-point shooter to even remotely justify. He was terrible, and those are really the three pillars here. Giannis absolutely shit the bed in the clutch. Jrue Holiday was terrible throughout the whole series and not good in this game, and Mike Budenholzer can't fucking coach a basketball game. So Mike Budenholzer needs to be gone, and I'm really hoping that with the Bucks we will see some sort of offensive coach who will do something creative with Giannis, because Giannis has his limitations offensively, obviously. But with someone who's as good of a finisher, ball handler, and playmaker that Giannis is, there are things you can do with that. There are a lot of things you can do with that, and Mike Budenholzer just always defaults to either posting him up or just having him run at the basket at the top of the key. It's just not ideal. It's not good. It's not championship play. Half-court offense is important, and it seems like the Bucks have always gotten by on just being okay at it, and the Miami Heat definitely very clearly pointed out what an issue that is, because you can chalk up the defensive issues the Bucks had primarily to the Miami Heat just shooting scorching hot from outside. Now, the Bucks also have a history, and this year as well has been the case, where they allow perimeter shots more than other teams do, trying to play the math on that. But the thing is, as my good friend Alex Hoops pointed out, you can't really play the math on something like that when teams are shooting as scorching hot from outside as they are. So with all of that said, the Bucks need to make some major sweeping changes, but let's talk about the Miami Heat side of things, okay? So first of all, easily the best playoff game I've seen of Bam this year, potentially the best playoff game I've seen from him, period. He had a really clutch jumper late in the game. Again, as I mentioned, great defense on Giannis, really playmaking well, obviously getting 10 assists. That's something about Bam Adebayo's game that I have wished would manifest more. When they added Kyle Lowry, they kind of took the approach of like, okay, Bam doesn't need to be a playmaker anymore, which kind of made sense when Kyle Lowry was in theory very good. He was great in this game, not to knock him, but I felt like eventually it was clear that Kyle Lowry was not it, so why not go back to Bam Adebayo being more of a playmaker? So hopefully this is a sign that they are going to use him more like that. And Jimmy Butler, again, amazing. I can't even put into words what he's been in this series. I think he's averaging like 39 for this series as a whole. Like, Jesus Christ, man, that's Michael Jordan shit right there. There's no other way to put it. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, man, literally one of the, I think, tied for like one of the 7 highest scoring performances in playoff history, and I believe the most efficient out of all of them. Yeah, man, just Jimmy was ridiculous in this one, but that factor was kind of to be expected to some extent. Not to the degree that he did it. I'm not saying anyone expected him to average closer to 40 points than he did, like 25 or 30. But what I do think was fair to expect was Jimmy Butler turning his play up. He has been hit or miss with that at times, but in general, when the moment calls for it, Jimmy Butler is going to fucking step up, and that's exactly what he did here. Bam Adebayo struggling for a large amount of the series also isn't surprising. He's had his struggles against Brook Lopez. Obviously didn't do it this game, but you know what I mean. What this series really came down to me, was how Miami's role players stepped up, because as much as Jimmy was amazing, and as much as he was a one-man show in Game 4, I don't think it's fair to treat him like he just simply won this for the Heat single-handedly, because what it came down to was, while he was scoring the ball as he was and garnering the defense's attention, he was kicking it out to guys to shoot the ball. And statistically speaking, the Miami Heat were not a very good three-point shooting team last season, in spite of that being something that they hung their hats on offensively for the past couple of years. So without having that factor, they would be screwed, because they were terrible this regular season because of it. Terrible, bad, mediocre, whatever word you want to use for being the 8th seed, or 7th seed for the regular season anyways. They needed that shooting pretty desperately, and they got it in droves. Duncan Robinson shot like 75% from 3 over these 5 games on good volume. As of the 8 players who were key in Miami's rotation in this series, 6 of them shot over 40%. They shot 45% from 3 in the series at large. They also shot 50% from mid-range. The jumpers just didn't stop going in. And that's ultimately the biggest thing to me. Miami's defense was good enough to bother an offense that often bothers itself. Jimmy Butler was great. Those are things that could have been anticipated and expected. That's what anticipated means. I didn't need to say another word there. But you know, what couldn't have been expected was this scorching shooting. So that's ultimately the X factor to me and why Miami won this series, as well as the significant gap coaching-wise between these two, between Mike Budenholzer and Eric Spoelstra. Because, woof, man, Mike Budenholzer should not be employed pretty soon. Pretty soon. Yeah, just I would not be surprised if his resignation, him being fired, was announced very soon. So there's that. I will say, if I was a Miami Heat fan, I would be a little bit concerned about just how good that shooting was and how much that truly did matter. But I also don't think it's ridiculous to expect a lot of the shooting that they did get to hold up. Like, Gabe Vincent shot great, Kevin Love shot great, and these were all on pretty good attempts. Gabe Vincent took some ridiculous shots because that's what he does, but he made a lot of them. He made a really, really clutch 3 late in this game. And Duncan Robinson's shooting well. He's not going to shoot 75% for the whole playoffs. Hell, maybe he is, and he's one of the greatest shooters of all time. But you can expect Duncan to shoot the ball well. He always has. Max Strus, same thing. Or Strus, I got corrected on that the other day. It's not going to be what it was, but it is going to be much better than we thought it was. That much I would definitely be sure of. And I, frankly, not to spoil my prediction here, although I'm probably not going to make a serious prediction, just given that anytime I make a Heat or Knicks video, it does poorly, so I can't imagine doing a Heat and Knicks video will do very well, unfortunately. But I guess I can just with my prediction here. I'd probably go Heat in 6. I do think a few too many people have been like super dismissive of the possibility of the Knicks winning this one. Obviously, the Heat beat a more impressive opponent in a more matter-of-fact fashion. I mean, I guess not. Both of them was a 5-game series, but either way, the Knicks, I feel good about the Knicks in that series as well, especially because I expect Miami's shooting to regress more to the mean. Not that I expect it, again, to be as bad as it was in the regular season by any stretch. But yeah, Miami, conference finals looks very possible as the 8th seed. And hell, with how good they've played, who's to say that they can't beat the Boston Celtics, who they've played well in the past, or the Philadelphia 76ers, who I don't think they have played. But hey, I guess I could talk about the Giannis conference thing, because that's something people have talked about. I feel like people are making too much of it. I don't really think it should be treated like, wow, this is some deep, profound thing that Giannis said. And I also don't think people should be pointing at him and go, ha, look at this loser trying to cope. Like, I don't know, man, it was kind of an innocuous statement to me that everyone decided to focus on rather than the basketball, because that's what NBA fans do, is they a lot of them, and hell, I do this a lot of the time too, care more about the narrative and the story and talking about shit like this than they actually do basketball. And one thing I'm afraid of for the Miami Heat is that they will get the 2011 Dallas Mavericks treatment, which is that their success story is routinely, consistently, more often than not, framed through the lens of the failure of the Miami Heat and LeBron James rather than the success of Dallas. Obviously, this is a massive upset, but I hope we remember this as like a We Believe Warriors type of upset rather than how people treat that series, where they stand on their own foot, but also people usually mention that team when talking about how LeBron messed up, you know? So I hope that doesn't happen. Same thing happens with the bad boy Pistons. Like, they should have three-peated if not for a dumbass foul call. And instead of that being talked about, instead of their success being talked about in the context of their own success and it just being that alone, it instead is talked about how it frames Michael Jordan's story. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Miami deserves its flowers. So does Jimmy Butler, man. Yeah. What a playoff so far, like, Jesus. So many things that no one expected whatsoever. I don't care who you are. No one had a Knicks or Heat in the conference finals unless you're a fan of those teams and you were being seemingly delusional. But apparently it's not delusion if you did think that. But yeah, I've rambled on long enough. That's it. Goodbye. Oh, shout out to Rudy for editing it, by the way.